Hello, and welcome to Express Media's National Young Writers Month. I'm Josiah Mullen, an associate producer at Express Media. Before we begin, a few reminders. You can join the conversation and ask questions by tweeting using the hashtag #NYWM15. And don't forget to check out the National Young Writers Month program online, get to a VoiceWorks 100 launch, and set yourself a goal for National Young Writers Month. Now, I'd like to begin by introducing the host of today's panel, Kaitlyn Plyley.
Hi.
Hey! Now, do you mind if I do a brief bio for you, Kaitlyn? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh no, you do it, please.
No worries. So, Kaitlyn Plyley is a writer, performer, and broadcaster living in Brisbane. Last year, she presented her debut solo show, Not Much to Tell You, at Perth's Fringe World and Queensland Poetry Festival. She hosts Just a Spoonful, the podcast that is young and fully sync. Over to you, Kaitlyn.
Thanks, Josiah. That's the hashtag. Yay! All right. Cool. We're gonna hear from each of our 6 guests today. For what's happening in their home state, which is pretty exciting. We've got Katerina Bryant from South Australia. Katerina, can you say hey?
Hi.
Say hi. There she is. And we've got Alex Griffin from Western Australia, who's currently in Melbourne.
Hi. Hello. Hi. Hi.
Nice beanie. Hi. Nice beanie. And we've got Caitlin Richardson from Tasmania.
Hi.
I hope you're not freezing. Brisbane is so cold.
Yeah, fine. Surviving.
Good. We've got Sophie Overett from Queensland.
Hi.
Hey, Sophie. And we've got Emily Meller from New South Wales.
Hey.
Hey. From Sydney. And we've got Lucy Nelson from Canberra in the ACT.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, awesome. So to kick it off, I'm going to talk to each writer a little bit, and then we'll have some general questions at the end. And we'll be taking questions all the way through the Hangout from you on Twitter with the hashtag NYWM15. So you can ask any of the writers a question. You can ask me a question if you want to, but I feel like everyone here is more interesting. So, Katerina Bryant. Katerina Bryant is a writer, editor, law student, and music critic based in Adelaide. She is an editor for South Australia's, I hope I pronounced this right, Dubnium literary journal, and a fortnightly columnist at Lit magazine. So, Katerina, I wanted to particularly ask you, you were the Buzzcuts editor for the 2015 Adelaide Fringe Festival, which is, like, arguably the best fringe festival in Australia and is the largest annual arts festival in the Southern Hemisphere. So I just was wondering what you think it is about the Adelaide Fringe Festival that draws in independent artists. Like, why Adelaide more than anywhere else? And is Adelaide a really great place to be an arts writer?
Yeah, I think it is a great place to be an arts writer. I think everybody kind of flocks to this city in particular because it's quite eccentric. Everybody's a bit weird and off-kilter, and since Adelaide is kind of known for being quiet, everybody goes out during fringe season. Like, if the same thing happened in Melbourne, people would kind of be like, no big deal. But in SA, it's a really big deal.
Yeah, I grew up in Perth with Alex. Well, not with Alex, but where Alex is. And it's a bit of a similar thing. It's like, if anything happens, everyone's like, oh, shit, we've got to go. So do you have are there a lot of local independent, like, arts writers and performance writers in Adelaide, or do you find it's mostly people coming in from outside?
I think a lot of the arts writers and reviewers are young people in Adelaide wanting to get in the industry, and that's why Buzzcuts is such a good program. But it allows young people to go out and see things and have opportunities to write for local magazines like Rip It Up and Trev, which is one as well. Yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Absolutely. If any Adelaide writers wanted to write for Rip It Up, how would they get involved? Or Buzzcuts as well?
Well, I wrote for Rip It Up for a while as a contributor there. I kind of got my foot in the door through interning for 3 months, and then they kind of kept me on as a reviewer and freelance kind of interviewer. So that's a really good way to get your foot in the door. Otherwise, just emailing them with some sample writing should work as well. Buzzcuts, you can apply to Express Media as a program, so you can just like write a cover letter and sample. I think because Adelaide's got so many shows going on in that time, the need for reviewers is so high that you can pretty much get your foot in the door in a lot of places, and that's a good thing all year round. You can continue contributing.
That's great. And could you just explain for people who might not know what Buzzcuts is exactly?
Sure. Buzzcuts is a program run by Express Media, and it's where young people write reviews and we post them online. And the main kind of point of Buzzcuts is to upskill young writers. So they work with an editor, which was me at the beginning of this year, and we kind of go through the main ways to review and the do's and don'ts, and then they get their work edited and posted, and they get to see a bunch of shows for free, which is pretty cool.
That's cool, and I imagine they'd be amazing shows too.
Yeah.
I've seen here that you've also interned at the Canary Press, which is a story magazine based in Melbourne. Do you feel like you'll eventually sort of move over to Melbourne, or are you happy just staying in Adelaide and writing in Adelaide?
I like Adelaide for where I'm at now. I found it necessary to go over and intern at the Canary Press because I love lit journals, and there aren't really a lot of national literary journals in Adelaide. So that was a good opportunity for me. But at the same time, because Adelaide is a smaller writing community and there is that need, I found through my work with Dubnium, which is a small kind of youth-based youth journal run by the Essay Writers Centre, that opportunity wouldn't necessarily be in Melbourne where there are amazing literary journals aplenty. So it's kind of like a balancing of like, I want to contribute to my city and my arts community. So,
yeah.
But I have to go to Melbourne to kind of get those skills and then come back and bring it back to the community, I guess. Yeah,
and there's kind of a balance between there may be fewer opportunities in like places like Adelaide or Perth, but you can do more of the work because it's not so competitive sometimes. So that can be good. Thank you so much, Katerina. I actually wonder, Alex Griffin, if you wanted to weigh in, being from the most isolated city in the world, if you do feel like you need to go to like Melbourne or Sydney or elsewhere to upskill and then bring that back to Perth. Like you're in Melbourne right now, so.
Yeah, and yeah, it wasn't for Krispy Kremes. There's something that Henry Lawson said about 120 years ago, and he said that if you were in Australia and you wanted to be a writer, and you weren't going to move to London if you wanted to stay in Australia, the smartest thing to do would be to buy yourself a gun and a book of medical anatomy so you could find the most efficient way to shoot yourself. Which is pretty dark. He thought everyone should move to London if they're going to succeed. And in a few ways, sometimes there's the mentality in Perth that you just have to move to Melbourne. There's this sense of eternal gravity that's pulling you out of Perth because like we don't have a great deal of literary institutions or jobs or employment for people who wish to write. But I think in terms of like coming to Melbourne, it's something. I personally I don't know whether I'll move here or not. It's something always in the back of my mind. But I feel like in terms of moving and communicating with other people in Australia and developing those skills and sharing those ideas, I think people in Perth, we can really gain a lot from traveling across because as you said, it's the most isolated city in the world, and that can often become sort of an incubator for like really good talent, really good ideas, but if you don't sort of go out and explore what you can do with those things, then you can sort of start getting a little bit snickety. So yeah, you've got to get out and see what happens sometimes. Melbourne's a good place for that.
Yeah, no, and I'm sorry, I should have given your bio before I started questioning you.
I need no introduction.
Yeah. Everyone knows.
Yeah.
Alex is a music writer from Perth and a former editor of the University of Western Australia's student magazine Pelican. I know Alex because I was editor a couple of years before him. So respect. He has been published on Tiny Mixtapes, a music review site, and a couple times in Overland magazine. And I'm curious about how you got involved with Overland, Alex.
It was just a matter of sending them a pitch and then delivering the article, I think. I mean, Overland No, well, I don't know. I mean, Overland, Meanjin, Subtly, Griffin Review. I mean, these really important continuing pieces of literary culture in Australia. I mean, I think it's important to read these things, to read the history of them, and if there's a debate which you feel isn't being had, then to contribute something to it. Like I wrote something about say the funding under George Brandis about 6 or 7 months ago in terms of classical music funding in Australia. And that's a debate that's been continuing to go on now, and I felt at the time it was important to write something, and no one else had done it yet. So I was like, well, maybe I'll throw my hat in the ring, and yeah, they accepted it, and then they paid me, so it was nice. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And do you think it's important for arts workers and writers from places that aren't New South Wales and Victoria to write commentary about the arts in Australia, so that it's not just coming from the main hubs?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think there's a few reasons for that. I guess when there's a conversation being had, what is said kind of defines the terms of the possible going forward. It's why the budget last year, the fact that the federal government laid down was so frightening. It wasn't so much the stuff that was actually going to pass through the government, because so much of it didn't, but it was the stuff that they said, the stuff they said was possible, which changed the terms of the debate. That's frightening. So I think, yeah, if you're coming from places that aren't from the hub, it's even more important to sort of, get your ideas out there and say, this is crucial, this is pressing, let's talk about this view of the problem. I feel, yeah, it's really important to do that. And it's even more important to talk about the stuff going on where you are, I think, if those conversations aren't being had and there are things that are important to you.
Cool, thanks, Alex. And now we can speak to someone who's actually from the hub. Emily Meller is from New South Wales, and she is a writer, editor, and law student in Sydney, who is the editor of the 2015 UTS Writers Anthology, and has been published in The Lifted Brow and Overland as well. And I'm really curious to hear a perspective from someone who lives in Sydney, which is home to so many publishers. Is there do you find that there's a paralyzing glut of choice of places to submit, or is it just is it insanely competitive and difficult to get your foot in the door? But I'd love to hear what you think, Emily.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's either insanely competitive or overwhelming necessarily. Well, at least in my experience, it's been the kind of community that's really open to people who want to write and who want to contribute. So yeah, obviously it's quite competitive because there's a lot of people here, but on the other hand, there are so many outlets that there almost is space for all of those voices, which is really nice. And I think the other really notable thing is, I mean, the places that I've been published most recently, like Lifted Brow and Overland, aren't even based in Sydney. They're based in Melbourne, so it's kind of also just about.
Hang on, we've got a dog. We've got a dog. Can we maybe have sorry, Emily, can we maybe have just any of the panelists who aren't speaking maybe mute your mic? Is that possible? Is that okay, everybody?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Okay, sorry, Emily, you were saying.
I feel like I may have forgotten the question slightly, but it's just about Sydney. Yeah. I mean, yeah, there are.
Brow.
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of funny in that I've been involved in kind of some Melbourne publications, I guess. But on the other hand, having some of those infrastructures like the Sydney Writers Festival and even like launches of Lift a Brow in Sydney and VoiceWorks in Sydney. It's just a really good opportunity to actually speak to people who are writing and who are publishing. And it's almost like being able to see people do that really does help you understand how you can do it as well. At least for me, that was a huge thing, is yeah, being able to speak to people makes it seem much more possible to actually write and have your work out there. But I don't think that it's necessarily at all a disadvantage not to be in the hub. But, I mean, yeah, I suppose I can't really speak to that, but yeah, it's competitive, but yeah.
Totally. And does it feel important to you to stay connected into like a tight community of writers? Because I know you are very involved in student publication.
Yeah, I mean, definitely it helps. You still have to be the one who's going after and being disciplined and making yourself right, but being able to speak to people and show them your work and have someone give you an honest opinion every so often, I mean, there's no real replacement for that. Yeah, so that obviously being involved in student publications was a really great way for me to make those kinds of connections. And yeah, it just helps when you don't feel like you're kind of alone, because everyone says it, but writing is so solitary. You kind of need people and you know, like my friends who don't write, you kind of try to explain to them what you're doing and you get blank faces and you just kind of go, oh, don't worry about it, like it's fine. So it's important to have people that kind of also understand like what you're doing and why.
Totally. And have you found that, because Sydney is quite a large city, have you found that you have sort of had to sort of pick through the different, I guess, like writing communities or like sort of publishing niches and like find your niche? Or do you just try everything?
I mean, I guess what I've come up through is I did the UTS writing program, and that's kind of been the base that I started from. So being involved with the UTS magazine Vertigo and UTS Writers Anthology, obviously, like centered on my university. But having said that, there are so many other writing communities that I'm not even particularly involved with, but who I've had the pleasure to meet some writers from, like Sweatshop in Western Sydney, and yeah, all of those, they are kind of quite almost separate, not separate cities, but very separate kind of communities that do overlap, but yeah, they're quite distinct, and I think that's a good thing. It really makes it all the more, I guess, diverse and interesting and exciting. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks so much, Emily. And that takes me to Lucy Nelson in Canberra, in the Australian Capital Territory, the official hub of Australia. Lucy is a writer based in Canberra and a producer for Noted Festival, which is a new literary festival founded just last year. So speaking of new and exciting things, how did you get involved in Noted, and have you seen a big change in Canberra's literary community?
I think it's probably too early to see a big change, but we're hopeful of some very promising changes. As to how I got involved, a small group of local writers and broadcasters and arts practitioners just, I think, were frustrated that there wasn't a writers' festival here, because there's pretty much a writers' festival everywhere else. And we just sort of put our heads together and thought about what a point of difference might be, and we thought an experimental writers' festival might be something fun to play with. So yeah, that started happening in about September, October last year, and we threw a writers' festival together in 6 months and on $5,000. Yeah, so no huge changes yet, but I can feel the machinations of change slowly happening.
Cool. And speaking of literary communities, I know that a sort of like very early potential criticism of Noted that was everyone involved were friends with each other, and there was worries that it would be cliquey. And I know that that was like very much a sort of something that you guys were trying not to let happen. But is that a danger when you do live in a sort of, I don't know if you would call Canberra a small town, would you? Not that it's actually
Yeah,
a small town, small city.
Look, I think a very common criticism of the arts community in Canberra is that the faces of the audiences and the artists alike are the same, and that's something that we were so aware of with Noted Festival, and we really tried hard to put great interstate artists alongside local artists, and I think we were successful. I think we achieved that. And one of the most exciting things for us is that we saw fresh faces. Some of the events, 70% of the audience we'd never seen before,
Oh, that's awesome.
which was really exciting. I think, yeah, I think it is a really easy trap for small arts communities to fall into, that it becomes very incestuous. And yeah, the producers of the festival are all friends, but I mean, that's because, yeah, that's just the nature of a small arts community. And that doesn't mean we're going to remain that way. Like, we're looking to sort of potentially advertise out for some fresh blood this year, potentially. So, you know, we're looking to shift that landscape and see how that affects it.
Cool. And I was really interested to find out that you were awarded the 2014 Templeberg Residential Writing Fellowship, which is a 1-month fellowship in the southern province of Sri Lanka, I believe. And how did you find out about that? And how has it made a difference?
I found out about it through just social media, I think. Just following all the places that we follow, you know, Writers Victoria, and it's through Writers Victoria. It's an entrepreneurial fellowship. So that's how I found out about it. And has it made a difference? It's made a difference to my CV. It's like, you know, I like that.
Is it
yeah,
necessary?
Was that your question?
Yeah, kind of. And like, is it necessary then for you to follow like interstate writer centres like Writers Victoria to keep abreast of all the opportunities? Do you definitely have to stay in touch?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the nature of the age we live in. I think, and it's also the beauty of the age we live in, is that living in an isolated city like Perth, or a small borderline incestuous arts community, maybe like Canberra, doesn't restrict you from national and international opportunities, because you can very easily keep abreast of everything that's going on, you know,
Cool.
around Australia.
Cool. Would you have any advice for any young writers in Canberra who want to crack into the incestuous sphere?
Do you know what? I always say to anybody who moves to Canberra for the first time and is a bit sort of finds the arts community a bit invisible or impenetrable, because I think that can be its first impression. I always say there's probably only about 10 things that you need to follow on social media. Go to all of their events, talk to all of the people at all of their events, and then you'll very quickly find yourself infiltrated into a really, really supportive community. I realise that's kind of assuming that people want to be sceney. It's a little bit difficult if you're not sort of a scene person and you prefer to write alone. But still, there's like 10 things, and it's really easy to kind of just, and they all inform each other, and yeah. So I would say probably good to know what those things are. I should probably say some of them. Scissors, Paper, Pen, RIP Publishing, Ainsley and Gorman Arts Centres, Feminazi, Grapple, and obviously Noted Festival. That's a good start.
That's great. Thank you so much. Sophie Overett is in Queensland, and Sophie is a writer and arts worker who has been published in VoiceWorks, Regime, Seizure, and Scum Mag, and she is the digital content producer at Queensland Writers Centre. So, Sophie, I was wondering if any of the things Lucy was saying about Canberra sounded a bit like Brisbane. Sophie, are you there? Hi.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, there's a little bit of a lag I'm finding. So hopefully it's all right.
That's weird because we're both in Brisbane.
Yes. Oops, sorry. Hi, yes, lag. Okay. Yeah, definitely. I think certainly. I know, it's really weird. Anyway. Sorry, start again. Yeah, definitely. I think there's certainly those sorts of insular writing communities in Brisbane as well. It's interesting though as well. I think there's quite diverse groups in Brisbane too. I think Brisbane's especially got an amazing science fiction and fantasy writing community at the moment, which is really growing and expanding. And similarly, it's got a literary kind of group, and it's got a lot of kind of crossover. I think particularly because you've got the two really big university courses, which is at QUT and at UQ. Those kind of organically form
quite interesting and dynamic writing communities just off the back of those. And similarly with Queensland Writers Centre and working at Queensland Writers Centre, you kind of get to see the scope of it there as well. I think it's hard in Queensland especially as well because it's just such a huge state and it encompasses such a huge amount of area, and that we've got so many regional writers and festivals and events, and it becomes this really spread out and interesting range of events and communities. Yeah.
Cool. And working for the Queensland Writers Centre, how much engagement do you have with these regional communities? Like, do you have as much available for like Cairns and Townsville writers as you do for Brisbane writers?
Yeah, definitely. So we have quite a lot of engagement. I mean, Townsville's quite lucky at the moment because they've got the Townsville Writers and Publishers Centre, which is a terrific organisation. And similarly, Cairns has got Cairns Tropical Writers. So there are a lot more regional writers centres, I think, popping up. I know there's one in the Hunter Valley now as well in New South Wales, and you've got Bundy Write Fest and things like that in Bundaberg. So it's so there's certainly a lot more regional communities really kind of forming from these grassroots writers and organisations. We certainly have a lot to do with them as well, though. I mean, we have a huge regional program of 50+ events a year as well. But we at QWC, we always try to partner with them as opposed to go in there and just take over. It's not really something we like to do. And that's half the fun of being able to go out and do those sorts of things, is get to meet these communities who are doing such interesting and awesome thents, and getting to encounter the landscape in that way, which is quite different from anywhere else I've been. Even last year, I went Midwest Queensland, which was a lot of dead kangaroos, but very beautiful, engaged groups of people, because we did a food writing tour around there, which was amazing. So yeah, so it's quite interesting, and like I said, you tap into these really unique and interesting communities.
Great. And for anyone like living in Queensland, do you have any advice like how to get involved with writing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I kind of came about it in a bit of a roundabout way. I didn't do a writing degree. I did a history degree, actually, at university, and I did a minor in social enterprise and working for not-for-profit. So I kind of ended up shoehorned in by getting a job at Queensland Writers Centre. But I'd also had a big history of volunteering. I'd volunteered at lots of festivals and Lifeline Book Fest and things like Supernova as well, which kind of taps you into a lot of different networks in really interesting and dynamic ways. I think doing a university course is great if that's a good fit for you and a good way to get writing. But I think even touching base with volunteering at Brisbane Writers Festival and things like that as well can be really, and Anywhere Theatre Festival if you're thinking of that, or if you're interested in comics and stuff, and writing for comics. There's Supernova, but there's also Zix, which is coming up in August, which is for zines and indie comics. And so there's lots of different ways to actually tap into these communities that are different from doing a university degree, which I think a lot of, especially young writers, think is what they need to do to be able to write creatively.
Great. Thank you so much, Sophie. That's awesome. And it is nice to hear that you don't have to do a degree to tap into really great literary communities. That's awesome. Finally, we have Caitlin Richardson in Tasmania. Kaitlyn is a writer in Hobart and co-writer of Twitch, the Tasmanian Writers Centre. The Tasmanian Writers Centre's group for young writers. She wrote and directed a performance called Undisclosed last year and has studied English and sociology at the University of Tasmania. So, Kaitlyn, I wanted to ask you about your semester that you spent studying creative writing at the University of East Anglia. Did you feel like you needed to leave your home state for a while to improve your writing, or what was your motivation for going to East Anglia? Which, by the way, is like one of my top 5 universities, so I'm really jealous. Oh, sorry, we can't hear you, Kaitlyn. Sorry, I still can't hear you. Have you got your mic plugged in? If you have a mic. Sorry, Caitlin, we'll just jump to someone else while you're figuring it out. Sorry about that. Well, does anybody of the panelists have anything that they particularly want people to know about their home state?
I guess maybe about WA. I'd say, yeah, there are a lot of interesting stories to be told about WA, and I think maybe they're not being told at the moment. So yeah, come here for material, I guess.
You could be the next Tim Winton.
No, we already have one. But yeah, and I guess for writers in WA who are watching, there are a lot of really great programs and events that are happening around Perth and, well, mostly around Perth, but things like Ships in the Night, which is a local spoken word event, which is bi-monthly, and that's really great, and you should get involved in it. Writ Poetry is a local, the Writ Review is a locally based poetry and poetry reviews magazine, if you're going to get into that. And yeah, the student magazines like Pelican and Grok are, yeah, definitely places to get your foot in the door, because the street press is unfortunately closing down. But yeah, look around and always be seeking out opportunities for things. You can only get your foot in the door by finding a door and ramming your foot in there.
Cool, thanks, Alex. Sorry, do we have Kaitlyn back? Can we hear you? Sorry, can we hear you now, Kaitlyn? Hello? Oh, she's gone. Okay. Alex, I actually wanted to ask you about how your time as a co-editor at Pelican, was that a big sort of shifting point in your career? Did that become a springboard for other things?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I guess whenever in your life you devote a whole year of, I guess, your life to sort of anything, like becoming a monk or whatever. But Pelican...
Pelican is not like becoming a monk. The opposite.
It was at times it was debauched, yeah. But it's I think the really something you really need to do, like as a young writer, is look at other people's writing and pull it apart and see how it works and understand what things do work, what your purpose is, to think about audiences. And when you're working on someone else's work and you're working on a magazine that has a purpose and you're trying to represent other people and to bring people in, make people feel welcome and help them develop their writing, it really strengthens a lot of important skills. Like since then I've been doing a lot of freelancing for a lot of different places. I've been editing a memoir. I've done a lot of things, and I think, yeah, the skills involved in, trying to pull together to make the best magazine possible is something, yeah, that's invaluable. Like, yeah, collaboration is always the best key to the soul, I think. So, yeah, no, it's a really good experience.
Beautiful. I hope someone live tweeted that. Thank you. Katerina, you're an editor for Dubnium Literary Journal in Adelaide. How has that experience, has editing other people's work made you a better writer, do you think?
I think it's definitely made me a better communicator. I think it's made me a better writer to be edited, if that makes sense, because sometimes when you're being edited, you're like, oh, they hate this part, like, I'm heartbroken. But when you're on the other side of that, you're like, you realize that they're not mean-spirited, they're just telling you as it is, and you get way better at accepting criticism. But I think I have been learning a lot, because you learn from, Dubnium is for like under 26s, so you learn from a lot of other young writers' mistakes, and you see what those mistakes are and use them to improve your own writing, which is a bit shifty, but...
That's great. So if anyone is under 26 in Adelaide, they should definitely look up Dubnium Literary Journal.
Yes.
Cool. That's great. And have we got Kaitlyn yet? Nope. Okay, never mind. So Sophie, you didn't have the university experience, and so I guess there wasn't really like a student magazine that you could get debauched at. How did you sort of like? Did you just start writing? Like, did the Queensland Writers Centre like hook you up with places to start submitting? Because you have a really amazing blog, and I want to know how you got so good. So.
Oh, thank you. Mostly reading a lot, actually. I think that was probably the way I really got into it. I've been writing since I was about 13. I used to write fan fiction very adamantly for Harry Potter. And actually, to be honest, I think that's how I got better at writing, was the fact that you kind of got into that experience of beta readers through that sort of thing. And that sort of... like learning about that process there, where you kind of started, you wrote a short story, you got it proofed, you edited it, and then you submit. So I had that sort of process from writing fan fiction, which is this kind of really good learning experience. I definitely think I learned about opportunities through QWC. QWC's got a great fortnightly free newsletter, which you can subscribe to, which promotes upcoming opportunities. And through that, I found out about VoiceWorks and Express Media, which published my first short story back in 2011, I think. It's a little while ago now. And just since then, I've kind of, like I said, from that, knowing that process of what goes into a story and what happens after the first draft was really, I think, what made me keep submitting and keep working. But I've always been a pretty voracious reader, and that includes blogs. And so I think... I learned what I like to read in a blog, and that kind of got me into writing and blogging as well. Yeah, cool. I like connecting with people, I guess. So.
Yeah, that's great. And Emily, you were a bit of a Harry Potter fanfic nut as well. Is that right?
It was definitely a phase back when the internet was new, wasn't it? It was crazy everywhere. Yeah. I never wrote them, but I had a lot of friends in high school who did, and it was amazing. They were quite good.
That's awesome. I think we might have Kaitlyn via microphone, via phone. Can we hear you, Kaitlyn?
Can you hear me?
Hey, we can hear you.
Oh.
Yay! Okay, Kaitlyn, you're in Hobart. Can you? What is that noise? Kaitlyn, you're in Hobart, but you studied at the University of East Anglia for a while. So can you tell us what that was like?
It was really interesting.
Sorry, just a second there.
Would that help?
No. Oh dear. Thanks for your patience there, everyone. This is some wonderful technical difficulties. Just sorry about that, Caitlin.
Maybe if I step away for a while. Is that better?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay.
Can she hear me?
Oh, Caitlin, can you hear? Caitlin, can you hear Caitlin?
Yes, I can now.
Great.
You guys now?
Excellent.
All right.
So, sorry, to answer your question, I guess I was interested in going overseas mostly just to have a new experience and to get out of Tasmania, but it was really good because it meant that I came to appreciate, as much as I came to appreciate what was overseas, I also came to appreciate Tassie as well. So that was really exciting to actually appreciate what we had at home. Yeah.
That's great. Just in case anyone didn't hear Kaitlyn, she was saying that that going overseas to the University of East Anglia made her appreciate what's overseas, but also what's at home, which I think is a really good point. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. And Can you tell us more about Twitch, Caitlin?
Yeah, so Twitch is the Tasmanian Writers Centre's group for young writers. And so we try to support the young writers around Hobart and around Tasmania. And yeah, I guess we try to run events and create initiatives which keep people engaged and sometimes kind of networks and stuff, and sometimes things like workshops and events where people can sort of think about their craft and get inspired, and it's kind of been a combination of things, but there's quite an aging population in Tassie, I guess, so sometimes young people are a bit marginalised, so just making things a bit more accessible and so people know what's out there and that there is a community.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, we're almost out of time, but I just wanted to throw a quick question out to the group. So we know that Caitlin has spent some time in England. I myself lived in London for a while. And Emily, you've spent some time in Glasgow, is that right?
Yeah.
Was that study abroad?
Yeah, that was just an exchange I did. So I was there for about 4.5 months all up, which, so Glasgow is not everyone's first choice, but it's a really great city.
And Katerina, you're planning to go to Portland, which, was that influenced by Portlandia at all?
No, it was purely based on the fact that I've heard they've got like one of the world's biggest bookshops, and I was like, I'm there.
That'll do it. Alex, what made you go to Vermont?
The independent music scene over there, and a lot of writers in that area, and like the fact that you can drive for a couple of hours and be in Boston and go and see bands, or a lot of music and art in the area.
Cool. And did anyone have an experience that made them never want to leave their home state again?
I lost my passport as soon as I got into America, and that was more just go back home and die in a hole, basically.
Plays for that. I'm kidding. I love Perth. Lucy, sorry, did you want to say something about the time you spent overseas?
Oh no, I was just thinking about my time in Sri Lanka that I spent as part of that fellowship. So no, but I don't think I've had any experience that's made me want to leave Canberra yet. No.
Is winter not enough?
Sorry.
Is winter not enough to do it?
It's like I've got my hot water bottle here. It's almost enough.
You can't see it, but I am like surrounded by heaters, and it's Brisbane. I'm a complete wuss. I would not survive.
I've been complaining all day, but it's like 10 here, but that's freezing to me at least. Anyway, and I've been in Glasgow, so I should know. I actually probably almost stayed in Glasgow, except that it was too cold. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Brisbane is like not the first place you would think of to have a literary career, but it's so nice here. Don't you think, Sophie? It's just so pretty.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Brisbane. I'm a Brizzy girl at heart. It's like I went did primary school in the UK, so I feel like I got a lot of travel very early. But I'm actually going to Portland next month as well. So.
Give me a tip.
I got into Tin House Summer Writers Workshop, so I'm going there for that, which will be super fun.
Wow, that's amazing. Cool. Well, Josiah, should we be wrapping up? I think that might be us done.
Yeah, we've hit time there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
A big thank you to everyone for giving up some of your time for this amazing panel today. And my apologies to you listeners out there for our mild technical difficulties, but I hope you enjoyed watching me holding a phone up to my screen. I was pretty pleased with that image. Thank you again for tuning in to this National Young Writers Month online event. A big thank you to Kaitlyn Plyley, Alex Griffin, Lucy Nelson, Sophie Overett, Caitlin Richardson, Katerina Bryant, and Emily Meller. And if you missed the beginning of our broadcast, the whole conversation is now on YouTube, so jump online and catch up. Express Media's National Young Writers Month is occurring through the month of June, both physically and virtually. Our next online event, Short Stories Salon, hosted by James Butler and Raphael S. Ward, takes place next week on Tuesday, the 9th of June at 6 p.m. online. In the meantime, keep up to date with the National Young Writers Month blog on the Express Media website, www.expressmedia.org.au. Check out the Twitter hashtag, NYWM15. Kevin, would you mind holding up the little placard again and say hello so we get your screen?
Hi! National Young Writers Month, yay!
And a reminder to get yourselves along to a VoiceThread 100 launch and set yourself a goal for National Young Writers Month. Thanks again for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you all again. Ta-da!